we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV. Here we are.
You can go for daily financial news and commentary from a black perspective. So make sure you subscribe, theblackfinancialchannel.com. That's our platform. We own it 100%. It's ours. We can do our thing. So anyway, I wanted to come in and talk to you guys. You guys know I talk a lot about money and wealth and things like that. And one of the things that we don't get a chance to talk a lot about, but actually I'm intrigued by it actually, is the link between money and love, and why how money shapes, you know, who we choose to sleep with, what people do in terms of their spare time, who they want to be friends with, things like that. You know, so for example, if you ever want to make a lot of friends real fast, just go get a lot of money. Everybody wants to be your friend if you have money. But I encourage you to be cautious about that, because there are a lot of people that have money that will use their money, their fame, and their power to make a lot of friends and get a lot of instant trust. And these are just not good people in many cases. And so anyway, I saw this story. It was on, I want to give credit to Nicole's View. Nicole's Twitter is Black Liberation 84, BLK Liberation 84. And so I think she has a podcast. I think it's called Nicole's View. And she shared this story that I thought was really interesting. And it was called Landlords Asking for Sex Instead of Rent During the COVID-19 Crisis. So basically, due to this crisis, and I told you guys in the beginning, remember, I've been saying this for weeks, that, you know, if you don't at some point at least consider getting the economy started or figuring out a pathway back to people going to work every day, you're going to start to have a lot of side effects from the drug called poverty, right? You know, or the virus called fear. The virus called fear and poverty mixed together. It's going to create a lot of crazy side effects that you may not have anticipated. You know, for example, we talk about the death toll and stuff like that. Well, the death toll is going to go up if people go, you know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months without paying their bills. So I have some friends online, you know, who are pretty hardcore socialists, you know, Bernie Sanders types, who are basically resisting the idea of ever possibly opening up the economy, because they feel like, well, you know, I'm not going to die for your capitalism. I'm not going to die for your. Well, first of all, I hate really just making people mad when I say this, but, you know, your odds of dying from the stuff that's out there are very, very low. I told you guys, I did the math. It's about 1 in 800 of a chance that you'll catch the virus, and then a 1 in 26,000 chance that you'll actually die from it. And also, if you're not over 60, your chance of dying are probably about the same as being struck by lightning, maybe something like that. So it doesn't mean you can't get struck by lightning. We all could, but is that enough to keep you in the house forever? I don't know. I'm gonna leave that up to you. But here's one of the side effects that that I knew was going to happen, because I know how money works. I studied money and the psychological effects of money for a long time. And so I saw this story and I said, yep, that's exactly what's about to start happening. People don't start getting desperate. It's about to get real up in his mug. You're about to have some illegal activities up in here. So let me read this to you. Hit the thumbs up button. Hit the thumbs up button. What's going on Instagram? My Instagram is The Real Boyce Watkins. So follow me on Instagram, The Real Boyce Watkins. It says a government agency in the U.S. state of Hawaii has reported an increase in the number of women reporting landlords asking for sexual favors in exchange for rent. The Hawaii State Commission on the Status of Women noted more cases being reported, suggesting that landlords are preying on tenants' financial stress during the COVID-19 pandemic. Due to recent layoffs and furloughs, only 69% of U.S. renters were able to pay rent on April 1st. 69%! Ooh, that's bad. That's really bad. Okay, so, yeah. All right, so I'm going to ask you a question. First, I'm going to ask the men. I'd be real curious to see how the men think. When you were young and broke, I was young and broke. If I was young and broke as a man, this is me speaking as a man now. I know women are different from men. If I'd had a hot, sexy, attractive landlord who said, you know, just hook me up and you ain't got to pay no rent, I would have saved a lot of money in college. I I would have saved a lot of money. I don't think I would ever pay rent. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that this stuff is okay, but the fellas, would you at least consider an indecent proposal if you were trying to pay your rent and your landlord, let's say now, all bets are off if she's ugly, or she looks like Lizzo or something, like all bets off. And I'm talking about, let's say you had a landlady who not a land dude, unless you're into dudes. If you're into dudes, that's okay. I'm not judging. I don't judge what people do in the bedroom. I really don't. I'm a libertarian in that way. I'm not here to judge what you do in the bedroom because I don't think that's healthy. I think sex is very natural. Actually, that's why we're all here. None of us, not one of you, would be here if somebody hadn't had sex at some point. So I think we're a little bit overly taboo about sex. But seriously, like the guys in here, if you had a landlord who wasn't too hard on the eyes, who you figured probably didn't have, any diseases, she ain't got coronavirus or nothing, would you have, and she said, hey, look, just take care of me once a month and you ain't never got to worry about rent ever again. How many of you would have been able to save a little extra money, would have put some extra in your stock portfolio, 401k? I'm not gonna lie, I don't, so as a man, when I read stories like this, obviously, men and women view that differently, right? So I have to actually convert my thinking to that of a woman to understand why this sort of proposal would be considered predatory, unfair, or indecent. Now I'm not going to ask the ladies that question because here's what I know. Remember, I wrote a book called Financial Lovemaking years ago. In 2006, I wrote this book. So I studied how people respond to money, how women in particular respond to, male financial advances or the advances of a man who's financially endowed, if you will. Here's what I know. You ain't even got to confirm it because I know this. I've studied this because I observe things. Women are more attracted to men that have money than they are to men who are broke. Seriously, like if you're broke, it doesn't mean you can't even the score somehow. Maybe he's got some other things going on. But most of the time, if all else is equal, the man with a lot of money is going to have the prettier girlfriend than the man who puts on a Burger King uniform every day. That's just a fact. People act like money doesn't matter because it's taboo to admit that it matters. It's taboo to say, I really want financial security. Like, I'm not trying, ain't nothing going on but the rent. I ain't trying to be broke up in here. I can struggle by myself. Sometimes you hear women say that, but a lot of women, they're forced in a box. We put women in an unfair box where they're forced to pretend like money doesn't matter. And I think that's unfair because that's like forcing men to act like, that a big booty don't matter, or that long pretty hair don't matter, or that if you're gorgeous and beautiful, that I'm going to treat you the same as if you were looking like a ragamuffin. Like, that's not true. We know that's not true, right? So I think the same way it's not true, and it would be unfair to force men to pretend like they're going to treat every woman the same no matter what she looks like. I think it's unfair to expect women to see all men as equal, including the ones who are broke and busted. That's why I speak specifically in many cases to black men about the importance of learning about economic strength and how to obtain that, because I think women want that. I think it's not even something they choose. It's biologically wired in their brain stems from 100 million years of evolution. It just is. That's my belief. You're not going to change my opinion. That's just what I think. Now, with that said, here's what I'm going to say. I think in our society, we do have a big money for sex trade that happens all the time. It's just typically a more subtle process. It's not, here's $100, let's go in the bathroom. That's kind of on the raunchy end. It's usually like, oh girl, he's a doctor, what? Right? Like, and then suddenly he becomes much more handsome because he's got, $100,000 in the bank, right? So it's something that people have to accept. I think men can't naively go into life thinking that, okay, you play for the Dallas Cowboys and you signed a $100 million contract. You can go ahead and pretend like she would have still married you even if you were working at Dairy Queen. But we know that's a fucking lie. Excuse my French. We know that's a lie. We know that if y'all go to divorce court, she's going to have her attorney demand what they consider to be their fair share of your assets. So you have to be ready for that, right? That's it. You just have to be ready for that. It's life. It is what it is. It's just facts. So when I thought about all this. All this goes through my brain when I see this whole indecent proposal, money for sex exchange. I'm not surprised. One of the reasons why I also say that it's very important that you give your daughters financial literacy training. Like, the reason I drill my girls in my house about economic intelligence and how to make their own money is because I don't want them to be in a position where they are extremely desperate and some man comes along and says, girl, I can make all your problems go away. All you got to do is just take care of me. All you got to do is give me what I want. Right? I don't want them to have, I want them to have freedom. I want them to have the ability to choose without having the money be the dominant factor. Now, if you choose to, marry a guy or date a guy because he's doing well financially and that's part of his attractiveness package, that's okay. But it has to be a choice. And what happens is that when we don't train our girls to be financially intelligent on how to make their own money, they get to the point where they don't have a choice. I don't know if you guys know this or not, but did you all know that the single black mother has the lowest net worth of any group of people in America? Did y'all know that? The single black mother, the single white woman's net worth is like $48,000 or something like that. The single black mother's median net worth is like $5. $5. So, and then we could talk about the men. The men, there's an urgency in teaching your sons, but it's a different kind of urgency. It's a different style of necessity, meaning that for him, he can't go through his life on his knees begging a white man to give him an opportunity, because what if the white man doesn't show up and doesn't help him? He's going to have to know how to create his own business. So because at the end of the day, his woman and his kids, as much as they might want to love him through all his inadequacies, they're going to the baby still needs a new pair of shoes. The kid's still going to have to eat. Right. So at the end of the day, that's why I think financial literacy and financial training is so important. So because when I see this offer of exchanging money for sex, I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm going to say that I don't really care. I mean, if somebody's sleeping with somebody to get money, I really don't judge that. I just don't care. It doesn't, because I'm not there. As long as you're not sleeping with me, I'm okay with that. But one of the things that I think is really unfortunate is it's an awkward power dynamic in the sense that, we can say, and I'm not saying that it's not predatory to say to somebody like, hey, look, you take up my balls, I'll overlook the fact that you didn't pay the rent this month, right? Like I'm not saying that that's not predatory, right? That's clearly an uncomfortable exchange. I think it happens a lot, but it's uncomfortable. It's not something I agree with at all. But here's the thing, right? So you then say, okay, that's predatory. It's highly inappropriate for you to make that suggestion. Well, unfortunately, the challenge, the ugly part of that is that at that point, then he suddenly just says, okay, fine, get out, get the fuck out. You and your kids, leave, get out. Y'all got to go, right? Now, I'm not trying to say either one of those options are good, but I'm saying that a lack of financial preparation and a lack of financial security often puts you in situations where you're between a rock and a hard place. The best way to avoid somebody engaging in predatory actions or proposals towards you due to an amount of leverage that they have over you is to avoid situations where the leverage exists at all, right? So why not train your daughter, instead of being the renter, why not train her to be the landlord, so that she never has to make an uncomfortable decision like that again? If she want to be a hoe, it'll be because she chose to be a hoe, not because somebody drafted her into hoe slavery. Like that's what I'm saying to you. Again, I'm saying this without judgment of what people do with their sex lives, because I'm sure half y'all in here are probably freaks and they gonna pretend like you ain't never done nothing nasty in your life. But I know how life works. Come on now, I'm 48 years old. I've seen a lot. So I'm not judging. I'm not judging that at all. I'm just saying that one of the reasons that economic intelligence is so important for black people is because it gives you options. It gives you freedom. And people that have to deal with these situations are people, unfortunately, who were never prepared to have or create any options for themselves. And I think that's highly unfortunate. And so this complaint is happening everywhere. It's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. Pretty soon you're going to hear stories about people stealing and killing and doing terrible things to other people because they're getting desperate. That's why I'm going to just say this. I'm going to say, here's what I'm going to say. I'm not going to say it wrong. I won't say it wrong. Because people get mad. They I don't know. They think I'm too insensitive or what. I'm not insensitive. I'm very sensitive to what we're going through with this virus thing. I'm very sensitive to it. I follow all the rules. But I'm going to say that I'm trying to figure out, why there is so much resistance to trying at some point to get some parts of the economy restarted. I think that you can still do social distancing. You can still wear your mask. You could still, quarantine a little bit. You could still make sure the senior citizens are kept in, in a separate space so they're not vulnerable. and still have the economy up and going, because I think that whatever you've seen up until this point, you're going to start seeing worse things as time goes on. This is just month one. Wait till month two comes around, and landlords are going to start putting people out in the street. It's going to be real, man. It's going to be real. So somebody said, Larry said, Doc, man, if you didn't have a PhD, you would be out here laying the pipe. Well, who said you can't lay the pipe if you got a PhD? I'm playing. I'm really joking. I'm really joking. I'm not here to be raunchy and crass. I'm trying to be all professional and stuff. Everybody has a sex life, and if you don't, you should get one, because that's what you're here for, is to reproduce on some level, or to at least engage in the act of reproduction. If you haven't done it, it's fun. You should try it. Jerome, thank you for your donation. He says, starting my property preservation business this summer. Thanks to watching your videos. Okay, all right, with Daniel Pierce. All right, great. I just wanted to thank you. You made me realize my time was worth more than a paycheck. All right, my brother. Good for you, man. Well, when you come back in, Jerome, I'm glad you made a donation to the Super Chat, because when people make donations to the Super Chat, unless I'm with Dr. Claude Anderson, I always read their entire comment. So if you guys ever want like cheap advertising for your business, if you make a donation to the Super Chat, then your comment appears in color. And out of respect for your donation, I usually will read the comment if I can, unless except for in certain situations. Most of the time I will. And that's a good time to promote your business. So when you come back, do another Super Chat donation, Jerome, and mention the name of your company, and I'll mention your company on the podcast. And we have a lot of viewers and stuff like that, so I hope that'll help you out. What's a good stock to invest in? There are quite a few. Some of the stocks that I've been recommending have already kind of made their moves, and some of the analyst recommendations have shifted a little bit. But in the Black Stock Market program, I have a list. I do research on different stocks every day. Let me see if I can think of one that I liked. Home Depot. I picked that one. That was one that I grabbed onto. Me and Alicia went to Home Depot last week, and that sucker was full. So many people were there doing, while they're at home now in quarantine. I think people are going to start living again. I don't think people are going to just stay in this weird situation where they can't do anything, can't go out. I mean, it's Easter weekend. She went to the grocery store. It was totally packed. Wasn't nobody wearing a mask. And I think that's really normal. I don't think that it means that we're being irresponsible, right? You're not trying to have house parties and everybody just breathing in each other's face. But I do think that eventually people are going to be like, okay, I got a 1 in 25,000 chance of possibly dying by going out and living my life. I'm going to go live my life. Or even when you talk about going to see your grandma is 75, 80 years old, ain't got that many years left. I don't want grandma to have to spend the rest of her life in quarantine until she's old and dead. Who wants to do that, man? Seriously. So let's see. Do you think the banks will do a bail-in and use our deposits? Bail themselves out with our deposits? No, they're not going to do that. How will this affect November? It's going to be interesting, because all your presidential candidates are really old. So they're at high risk of coronavirus. So how are they going to campaign? That's the part I'm really curious about. How y'all going to work that out? Because both Trump and Biden are super old, so they're right in the high risk group. So I think that's going to be fascinating to see how they finagle that one. I don't know. I heard rumors about Obama going and being a surrogate for Biden. I could see that happening, but I don't know. But even at Obama's age, anybody's age, I don't think, even myself, I don't shake nearly as many hands as a Barack Obama does, but I go places and I shake a lot of hands. And so I felt personally that I was at risk of catching something because I shook so many hands, even though I was constantly doing the Purell and all that. So it's not that the virus isn't out there and it's not real and that it really can't hurt you. But I can't sit here and live in fear, man. I can't sit here and just be like, oh, I'm going to stop my whole life because there's a 1 in 25,000 chance I'm going to catch this and die. Every year you have some probability you could die of the flu. I don't know if y'all know that, but the flu actually killed 80,000 people last year. And so if you expect me to cry over, the corona cases, then you should have expected me to cry over the flu cases. Or you should expect me to cry over the fact that 1 in 6 Americans dies from a heart disease. There's thousands of people that die from cancer. There's thousands of people AIDS. Think about this. You got AIDS been out here 30 years, and people still out here having raw sex. Seriously, there's people out here still having raw sex, even though AIDS has been around for a long time. And my belief is that there's some people who are like, yeah, I hope it don't happen, but I'm just going to take my chances, right? I think that's what people are thinking. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but I'm saying that I think that there are people who are just saying, you know what, I'm just going to choose to live life. And if bad things happen, then so be it, you know. But be responsible, you know. So again, I think of it a little bit. I guess you could think about it like sex, right? If you want to sleep with somebody, now should you go around having unprotected sex with anybody you meet, you know, on the first date and do it hundreds of times? No, that's stupid. That's irresponsible. You're gonna catch the Rona doing that, right? But but you like somebody, you meet them, and you want to do what grown folks do. I don't really know if the chances that you could catch a disease should keep you from exploring your life. So that's my 2 cents. That's what I believe, and I'm sticking to it. All right, guys. So I'm out of here. Have a good day, and thank you for listening. And by the way, please help me with this campaign. I want black people on our channel because we are the intelligent black people. We are the talented 10th. We're not into as much of the dumb stuff as everybody else. I would like for us as intelligent black people to have a stock market participation rate that is higher than the general population. Stock market participation is one of the leading indicators of wealth building for families. So go to your Cash App or something and buy you some shares of stock, become an investor. So the next time I do a survey, I'd like for the results to tell me that over 70% of the people on my channel are invested in the stock market on some level. Okay, so if you're not sure how to do it, there is a free video you can watch, totally free. Just go to firstshareofstock.com. That's firstshareofstock.com. Some of you who watch it every day, you've heard me mention that URL. Forgive me, I have to repeat it because we literally get a few thousand new subscribers every week, and I want everybody that comes in to just know what we're all about from the jump. So firstshareofstock.com. And some of you are asking about this shirt. We do have a t-shirt line if you want to go take a look. It's wokeblacktees.com. That's wokeblacktees.com. My son set it up, so we have some cool shirts over there like this. So take care, guys. I'm out of here. Have a good day, and I will see you soon. Be good. Peace.
Here we are, clan the isms, cataclysm, great. Our people out here struggling, trying to make it in this state. Everybody out here doing it, but we the ones who late. Now family, we the ones who gotta delegate. Get that money in the power, never be fake. Stick to cosign for 3. What did he say? Create jobs, support our own. Educate the same and buy back your home. Got 3 degrees, triple 10. 3 PhDs, now we on the CNN. DBTV, let's talk about negligence. Ignorance is bliss, but we can turn it to intelligence. Believe none of what you hear, half of what you see. Let's break it down here on Dr. Boy's TV. Here we are.